Now continuing from this point, we're going to play 12 on the G, 8, 12, 8 on the high E, 12, 9 on the G, finally coming back to the root note C on the 10th fret of the D string. So here's the entire phrase for the C major chord. The next chord we're going to play over is B diminished 7. Here's our phrase for the B diminished 7. Starting off on the high E string, 10, 7, jump to the G string, 10, back to the high E string, 7, back to the G string, 10, 7, 9 on the D, 7 on the G. Those first 8 notes for the B diminished 7 once again. Continuing with this chord, 9 on the D, 7, 10 on the G, 7 on the high E, 10, 7 on the G, 9 on the D, 7 on the G. So the entire measure sounds like this. Now we move to an A minor chord. Here's the phrase for A minor. So we're going to start off 8 to 5 on the high E string. I'll use my third finger there to do that pull off because I'm going to have to grab 9, pull off to 5 on the G string. 7 on the D, 5 to 9 on the G, 5 on the high E. So we've done 8 notes so far, or half of this measure. Continuing, 8 to 5 on the high E, 9, 5 on the G, 7 on the D, 5 G, 7 D. So here's the entire measure once again for the A minor chord. Now we're going to move back up to 10th position because we're going to play over a D minor chord, and here's the phrase. And we're also just going to play half a measure here. We're going to play half a measure D minor, and then we're going to move to an E major sound. So for the D minor, we're going to play 12 on the D string, that's the root note D, 10, 14 on the G string, high E string, 10, 13, 10, back to the G string, 14, 10. So there's the half measure that we're going to play for the D minor. Now we're going to shift up 2 frets and play in E, and here's the phrase that works over the E chord. So we're going to start off on the E note, 14th fret of the D string, followed by 13 to 16 on the G, 12, 16, 12 on the high E, back to 16 on the G, and then the whole piece ends on an A minor chord, and here's the final phrase. So it's a pedal tone idea, which means we keep going back to one note, in this case, A. We're going to start off on the 12th fret of the high E, and then grab A on the 17th fret of the high E. And we're going to keep coming back to this A on the 17th fret of the high E. So after those first 2 notes, now we're going to play 13B, 17 on the high E, 14G, 17 on the high E, 14D, 17 on the high E, And then we finally end on the root note A, found on the 12th fret of the A string. Okay, a lot of notes. Why don't we try putting the whole thing together now slowly?